Okay. Now for today, basically, I will go to discuss about the codes for audits. Okay. Now earlier we discussed about auditing in general, right? From theory point of view, and also I give you the, let's say, theoretical, let's say, tutorial. But for today, I will go to focus on how we can conduct audit, how we can conduct audit. Just I want to highlight earlier, just to make things clear. We said that when I have the audit environment, right? One of the things that we will have is the objective. One of the things that we will have is the objective. Now, when we go for objectives, we will have generic objectives and detailed objectives. Okay, generic objectives like, okay, I want to ensure that my system is, let's say, secured. I want to ensure that my system data are, let's say, integrity is high integrity, and so on. Okay, these are what generic. Then we have a specific what objectives, a specific objectives, and we said that for these specific objectives, I will have different ways to track it, different ways or different tools I will go to use in SQL to track it. Now, basically, I have covered till now DML triggers, right? And if you remember DML triggers, we use to create the audit table, then we create triggers to save some data for that audit table. So this is the first one. Later also, if we have time, I will cover it in this lecture, which is, we'll go to discuss about what? The other two types of triggers, which is DDL triggers, okay, and also log on triggers, and also log on triggers. So I will cover this also as what? As triggers, But for today, basically, I will go to focus on one of the tools which is provided by SQL Server, which is the audit tool. This is like, the official, I will say, audit tool, which is provided by SQL Server. So therefore, let me just open the file here. Okay, let me see if it's there. Transaction, no. So let me just go for okay, DBS module. Okay, lecture code. So I'll go here for SQL Server audits. Okay. Now, when we discuss about, let's say, audits on SQL Server, I will have basically three types, or I will have three levels if you want to do that. First, audit can have the following categories of actions. The first one will be the server level. Okay, these actions include server operations such as management, changes and log on and log off operations. Okay, so later I'll go to show you an example for server, let's say, audit process. So I will can track who are the persons who try to log into our system. Are there, let's say, for example, let's say actions or login, let's say, were successful, or let's say were not successful, and so on. The other one will be on database level. Okay, these actions encompass data manipulation and data definition operations. So here I'll go to highlight or go to give the examples on how I can extract the information for what actions, especially when I will focus a little bit on DML. That means, okay, how I can go for a specific, let's say, database, then I can track what any actions that will happen on the data from DML point of view. Okay. The last level will be the audit level. And for audit level, these actions include actions in auditing process, like for example, a change or audit change. Now, even here, for example, we are doing audit, so I can also track if any person want to modify the audit level. That means the audit, let's say, items and so on. For one of them, it will be like audit change group and so on. Okay, so basically, I will focus on today's lecture on the first two, I will say, actions for audit. So let me show you how this look like basically on SQL Server. Then we will proceed. Now here on my SQL Server Management Studio, as you mentioned earlier, we have two levels for security in general. There is one which is always on the server level, and the majority of the things they will be under security folder. And there is also the security on the database level. Like for example, earlier when we went to Dream Home, we said that Dream Home here we have what? Security folder. And if you notice when we done the creating, let's say, logins and users, basically login was created under what? The server level to allow you to access to the SQL server, while later user was created under what? User was created under, let me just show you here. User were created what? Under database to ensure that you can access that specific database, and later we give permissions and so on. Okay, I think all of these are clear. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any question about the previous things, you can ask me anytime. You can ask me anytime. Now, let's go for audits. When we discuss about audit in general, okay, I will have two levels. Once again, we have the server level and we have database level. So when I go for the audit, I will have two things. We just highlight it. I have two folders. The first one is called audits. Okay, here in audits, I will go to define the file. Okay, I'll go define what? The file. And some options about the file. I will go to use the graphical interface, and also I'll go to use what? The scripts to create this file. The script to create this file. Okay, I think we have audit. Let me just have a file because I used this earlier usually. So I have audit. Okay, let me just, seems I forget this working for a long time. So let me just add it here. Okay, just to ensure there is all the files are new when I begin to create the audits. Okay, so first of all, we have the audit folder. Okay, in the audit here, I will go to create the audit file. The audit file. Now I want to highlight this from now. For the server level and database level, the audit file will be created on the server level. What I mean by that, here I will have the audit file, right? Which is what? On server level, as you can see here. If I go for databases, and I go for Dream Home, for example, okay, then I want to go for security. Notice here, I have something called database audit specifications, but I don't have something called audit file. Clear? So from now, okay, because usually this is one of the common questions that the students will ask later. Where is the audit file for, let's say, on the database level? The audit file is on the server, defined on the server level. Okay, so as a file, as audit file, I will go define it where? On the server level, which is here, as I'll show you right now. But later, if I want to define something called database audit specifications, that means which things I want to track, I will go here for what? I will go for security, then I'll go for database auditing specification. If I want to create the audits for the server level, I will go here. I'll go for the server audit specifications. Okay. So I want to ensure that this is clear from now. This is clear from now. Now, when I say audit level is basically also under the server level. Okay, that means it will be under this folder, under this folder. Now, let's go to create our audit file. Now, I want to show you first the graphical interface. Then I'm going to show you what the code on how we create that. So let's assume here I want to go for audits. Right click. Then I'll go for new audit. Now here when I have the new audit, first I will have the audit name. Okay, so I will go to define the name that I want. Then I will say queue delay in milliseconds. So usually it is the 1000 milliseconds. Just I will leave it as it. Okay. Then on audit log failure, that means here I am tracking some actions happens by the user. That means either it will be on the server level or database level. So in case of audit log failure, that means something goes wrong. What to do? Either I will continue, that means, okay, that means maybe I'm not able to track the information, not able to record the information in the log file. So simply just I will continue with doing what I'm doing. There is no interruption by SQL Server, or I will fail that operation. So it will not allow me to complete that operation, or shut down the server. So maybe you will assume that there is some action which is, if it is done or I'm not able to log it, I will go, because this is maybe severe, so I want to ensure that the information are there, so I will go to shut down the server. So these are basically what the three options. Now why I'm highlighting it here, because later I will go to use it in the code, as you can see right now. Okay. Then we have here the path where you need to, let's say, add the file. You'll see in my case, I will add it to E, then audit file. Okay, I will add it on E to audit file. I want to highlight here, usually try to avoid C file, especially now if I'm using Windows 10, I will say in general, because there is some security from, let's say, NTSF, let's say, perspective. Okay, usually because we install operating system on C drive, so sometimes when I want to create some files, it will cause me some problems. We can solve it by giving the permissions and so on, but usually for the first time, just try to use another drive, just to a drive, or if you are on C, don't just save it on C drive directly, just try to create like subfolder and so on. For me, I will go to generate or create these files on audit folder, okay, in under E drive, under E drive. Okay, audit file, maximum limit, maximum rollover file. Here basically what we will have is, if I have a specific number of files, I'm just generating a files. So let's assume I said, okay, here I said there is no limit, but let's assume I said we have the maximum is 100. So what will happen? If the audit files reach 100, 101 will be replacing, for example, number 1. Okay, so you can limit this one here. So here, this is theoretically the number of files that you can generate. This is from theoretical point of view. Okay, the maximum file size can be unlimited, or you can say, okay, what is the maximum size? Maybe you want to say, okay, each file size maximum is 5. So later it will go to save the information on another file. The last one, it will be reserve disk space. That means if you want to highlight here the files and the size, I can say, okay, please go and reserve that, let's say, disk space for my, let's say, file. That depends. Sometimes we add it, sometimes we don't. That depends on the storage that we have. Now, when I generate this one, it will go to create the audit file. It will go to create the audit file, as I'll go to show you right now. So I will cancel here this graphical interface. Then I'll go for what? I will go here for the code. I'll go for the codes. Any question till now before I proceed? Any question till now? Okay. Now to create the audit file, you will go to use the syntax create server audit. Notice here I'm using what? I'm creating, let's say, the audit. So I'll say create the server audit. Then I will give the name. So here I said create server audit logins. So I want to track what? The logins to my system. To file, and here we'll add the options of the file. For example, the file path where I'm supposed to store this data. Okay, so I'll go to put it in E audit. Then what is the max size? So here I say it is 10 MB. Okay, the max rollover files. This is the default. Usually just we edit in general. If you want to have like different conditions, you can modify it. Okay, then reserve disk space. Off means don't reserve the file space. Let it grow, and so on. Okay, so for now I'm saying it is off. Then width. Okay. The queue delay is 1000 milliseconds. This is the standard. Usually we don't modify it in general. Then on failure, what to do? As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 cases. We have either continue or failure. That means just fail the operation. Okay. Or what? Shut down the server or shut down the server. Now, let me just highlight here one thing, and let's go for the audit. Now, attention please for this point. Here, when I highlight this code, then I will go to say execute. Now, I'm supposed to get what? The audit file to be created here, right? Let me just show you. So execute. Notice here it says command completed successfully, right? But here on my folder, I didn't see anything. And so this is one of the common questions by the students. Why I create this login file, okay, as you can see here, but I didn't get the file, right? There is nothing here. Even I click on F5 or refresh, there is nothing here. Now, when you create the audit files in SQL Server, by default, it will be disabled. By default, it will be what? Disabled, not enabled. So to show the file, I must enable it. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I go here for my security audits and I go for refresh, notice here the file is created, right? But here you can see what it is disabled. So if I go for right click, notice here it give me the option to what? To enable the audit. So it says by default it is what? Disabled. Since the audit file is disabled, it will not appear or it will not be created on my hard disk. That means the file itself only, or sorry, till now the audit is created on the SQL Server, but the file is not created on my hard disk. Okay, and it's usually confusing. Why? Because earlier, when you use stored procedures, for example, or triggers, yes, it is created and it is there. Even I don't have files basically, okay, but it's enabled by default. But here, no, it is the opposite. So to do that, I can go right now, right click, then I will say enable, or I will go here and I will use this command, which is called alter server audit, which is the logins audit with state on. Now, when I execute this command, I suppose if everything was, there is no issues, I supposed to get what my file created here. So let me highlight this one, then execute. Notice here it says command completed successfully, and then the login file was created. Now it give me the login file, then give me this name which is generated by SQL Server .sql audit. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Any question till now? Okay. Now what I want to do here, I want to go to access, or I want to create, okay, a server audit specification. So here we have created the file. Let me just, okay, F5. So here I create the logins, okay. Now I want to create what? I want to create the action. What this or what information I want to store in this login audit file. So therefore here I will go to define what I want to have. Now let me just show you this using graphical interface just to give you generic idea. Then here I'll go to apply my code. Then I'll go to apply my code. So I'll go here to server audit specifications, right click, a new server audit specifications. Here you will have the name of this server audit specification, as I will go to apply it here by saying it is called login logs, okay, in our case. Then here you must attach it to which file that you have created. So for example, here I created what? The login file. So I'll say, okay, it is login. Then later, I can see all the actions that I can record. So let me just go here like this. Notice here when I go for the audit action type, okay. Okay, so when I go for the audit action, let's say type, here you will have all the audit, let's say action, which is by default, the generated by SQL server. And to check for this one, simply you can go to Google here, right? And you write down the audit action type SQL server. Okay. And here you can get what? All the audit specifications and what they will do. So later you can check this one here. Okay, so here you can get all the details about all the audit action groups in general. Okay, let me just copy this one and give it here in your chat box so you can check it later, refer to it. Now, for me, I will go to use the login and most likely log out, okay, group. So let me just show you here which one I will go to choose in my code. So I will go to create server audit specifications, login logs for server audit logins, which is what this is the file that we have. Then add, here after add, I will go to define, okay, the audit action type, the audit action type. So I'll say, okay, successful login group, and I'll go for failed login group. So here basically I will want to track what? I want to track either user was successfully able to log into our system or simply they have some problems when they try to log into our system. With this state on. So here also what I have done, I will define it. Why? Because by default, it will be off. That means it will not be enabled. So you must enable it. You must enable. But here just I add this command with what? With the create server audit specification. So here, if I go for refresh, there is no audit files. So I'll go to highlight. Then I'll go for execute. Now command completed successfully, as you can see here. Then I will go for F5. Notice here now, I can see the logins log, and later, okay, I can here either disable this one if I want, and you'll see later now after I go to try to log into the system, I will go here to the audit login file, then right click, and I will be able to view the audit logs. I'll be able to view the audit logs. Now the other way will be to do that, to view the audit logs, is using the following command, This is how we access it using the graphical interface, okay, which I have done right now. So I'll go for audits, then login, then I can go for view. And notice here, SQL Server, okay, and even though this is created right now, but internally, when it is working, it will try to log in for my accounts, okay, which is I'm using. And therefore, you notice that some of the logins here, you will not be able to get it directly because this is just simply an internal operation done by a SQL Server, okay. Sometimes try to, let's say, log in for when I'm, let's say, trying to access or to execute some action. So it will assume that, okay, there is supposed to be a login, so it will be recorded on the system in general, okay? So if you get this, something like that, you will be generated by SQL Server, okay? But for now, I will try to access using different users that we have created in the previous classes, and to show how this will look here, either as success or failure. Now, this is how to access the file using the graphical interface, but also I can use this SQL command, SQL command will be select all from system, okay, fn_get audit file. Then you'll go to define the audit file, okay, or the path for the file. And here you can say all, that means show me or read all the files, audit files, or you can mention the name of the audit file. Then you will have two default values. As I remember, I need to refer to these values once again for the two default. One, it will be something called the initial value. That means, for example, if you have, let's say, 100, let's say, files, so I can say, okay, from where I need to start. The other default, I forget what it means, but we can refer later to documentations. In general, usually we put it as default. Okay, usually we put it as default. So later we can check what the two parameters here indicates, what the two parameters indicates. So now if I want to read the files, I will go here to highlight, then go for execute. So it will go to give me the following data. But for now, I'll go to test it just to show you how it works. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Okay. Now, this query here just simply will go generate usually a lot of, or give me a lot of columns. Okay. The second query, which is this one, this is just simply I'm customizing the output forward for the information that I'm really interested about. So I'm saying here, please only show me the event time, the server runnable time, is this succeed or not, then the statement. Okay, just to make it easy for me to read the file. So I can go here, highlight this one here. So this one and this one, they are the same, but this one is customized, okay? That means only have you some level of what, or some, let's say, less data for my audit file, Okay, clear? Any question till now? Okay, now what I want to do here, I will try to log into the system, okay, and see how this will be recorded in my audit file. Either I done log in successfully or I fail to log into the system. So I'll go here to connect database engine and I'll go for like Windows authentication and I will say we have, I think we have Mary, right? And the password supposed to be 1. So Mary, I was able to log in as Mary. Now this information is supposed now to be stored in my log file. So let me read it here. So let me just execute. So now notice here Mary is, okay, log in successfully. And notice here it repeats it for many times. In fact, I tried to check why we get this here issue. But from time to time, I'm not able to explain why, okay? It seems it records many cases. Let me just show you what I mean by that. I go here, I like execute or notice here. If I want to go by, okay, session principal, okay. So here we have Mary. For some reason, she's creating more than one sessions when I try to save this log file. Sometimes it will do that, sometimes no. This is why I'm usually confused about that, okay? But basically here it says Mary is able to, log in successfully to our system. Now let me just try to connect once again. And let's assume I want to go for, let's say maybe Alex. Then I will say here, okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for example, and try to connect. Now I'm not able to log in as Alex, so I'll say simply okay. Then I'll try to read the information once again. So highlight, execute. Now notice here, when I go for Alex, give me one record, and here it says succeed is 0. Then notice here, it gives me the reason for why I'm not able to, let's say login. It says login failed for user Alex. Reason password did not match up for the login provided, and so on. Clear? Any question till now? Any question till now? So far, so good. Hello, are you there on the other side?
All good, sir.
Okay, so far, so good. Now, let's go for the, okay. Now, let's go for the second type. Now, what we have done here, we have created first an audit file, right? Then we created the server audit specifications. Then we said, okay, I want to track what the login and logout in my system. Now, what I want to do, I want to create, once again, what? A database audit specification. Database audit specification. So let me show you how we do that. First of all, the audit file must be created on the server level. And I'm highlighting this once again, because many students ask about this later. So to do that, I will use master. Notice I'm using what master, just to confirm. Then I will go to create another file. So I will go to create server audit. Notice here, I say this is what? Server audit, because I don't have database audit. Clear? Dream home DML commands. And basically what I want to do here is that I want to track the commands or DML commands that applied on what? On my database, Dream home database. Now I'll go here to add the same parameters. Just I said, okay, this is where is the file location supposed to be? What is the size? What is the max rollover? Reservation for disk space? No, delay and continue. So I just use the same parameter. So highlight, execute. Okay. So till now it is not enabled. So just I'll go to enable it to ensure what? To ensure the code is created on my hard disk. So I will say execute. So now I have what? I have Dream Home DML command. Dream Home DML commands. Now what I want to do is the following. I will go to create database audit specifications. Okay. For that, I will go here. Now let me just show you the audit file. So we have the Dream Home, let's say DML or the DML commands. Now I'll go for databases. Let's go for Dream Home. Then I will go here for database audit specifications. Database audit specifications. Now when I go for the right click, let me just show you the graphical interface, then I will apply the code. Excuse me. When I go for database audit specifications, here the same thing, I will have the name, what you need to give the name for this database audit specification. Then this is supposed to be attached to which audit file. Okay, so let's assume here Dream Home. Now, just I want to highlight one point. Always try to avoid adding two, let's say, conditions, maybe like server and database audits to the same file, because usually this later will cause you problems. Usually this later will cause you problems. So always, if I have some specifications, just I will add it to a new file. Then I will go here for the new actions, and here it will see what are the database basically audit actions. Okay, and for me I will use most likely the schema change group in general, which will show me if I want to apply some of the queries. Then simply I put record it in the audit file. The same thing you can later check for this one on Google for the documentation and see what all of these do, these, let's say, audit action types. But for now, I will go for my commands, as you can see here. So I will go to create the database audit specifications by the following commands. So I will say create database audit specification. Now earlier we use what? Earlier we use server audit specification, which is here. Okay, so it was earlier server. Now it is what? Now it is let create database audit specifications. Now I'll give it a name. Then after that, for server audit, then I will define what that audit, which is Dream Home DML commands, the audit file. Okay. Then I will add which action types I want to record or I want to track. So here I say schema object access group. This is basically will allow me to check all the actions happens basically on my dream home database. But notice here when I create this audit, you need to be aware for this point. Earlier, when I was on the server level, I use master. I use what? The master database. Okay, because I'm on the server level. But now when I want to create the database audit specification, I must make sure that I choose what? I use the specific database. So I will say use dream home. Otherwise, it will go to create it, okay, under master, and then it will cause you problems. Okay, so I'll go here, execute. So now I'm using dream home database. Then later I will go to create the database audit specification. Okay, so I will highlight this one. Then I will say execute. Now notice here when I go for dream home, I will go for sorry, not tables. I'll go here for security under database dream home. Then I will go for refresh. So refresh this one here. Then after that, I will go for security. Under security, we have something called what? Database audit specifications. Database audit specifications. So here I will go to expand this one. Notice here we have what? We have a track, the dream home DML commands. Okay. So now if I want to track or if I want to view the information, I will go for the audit file to see if there is any data was recorded. So if I want to go here, right click, then I want to view the audit logs. Okay, highlight. Now notice here, it already recorded some data. Now why it is recording this data? Basically, if I want to track it here, let me just use the query, which is the customized query here. Okay, this one. Okay, now what happens here, or why this data was basically recorded? Basically, when I am moving on Dream Home database, even using, let's say, the graphical interface, for example, let's assume I want to go for here, let's say Dream Home database, then I'll go here for, let's say tables, then I'll go, for example, for staff, they will say, let's say, view, where is it? Select top 100 rows. Now, when I do that, all of this basically, okay, that's what I've done right now, is selecting database, then selecting the staff, then viewing the staff information. All of this will be recorded in my audit file, okay, in my audit file. So in this case, notice here now we have 39 records. If I run this once again at 5, it's supposed to have more than that. Okay, so it will go to show you here all the data that was, let's say, selected and so on. That means the things which is done internally in SQL Server. But to make it more clear, what I want to do is the following. I will go to provide user-defined, let's say, commands, okay, and then check it in the audit file. So for example, I want to say, select all from staff. So let me just highlight this one, execute. Then I will say, okay, insert into branch the values. So I will highlight this one. Then I will say execute. So I will assume that the audit file is supposed to have all these queries right now. Then I will say, okay, after I update this information to the branch table, go and update it by changing the city from KL to London. So I will highlight this one. Then I will go for execute. Then here I will go to delete from branch, where branch number is equal B113. Okay, for example, highlight, then execute. Then I'll go for, let's say, execute the stored procedure, for example, SP staff underscore name. I'm not sure if this is there or not, but let me execute it. Okay, it is there, so it was executing it. Now, what I want to do, I want to view the content of the audit file. I want to view the content of the audit file. So I can view all the details, or I can use the customize one as I show you here. So let me just highlight this one, then execute. Okay. Now let me just scroll down to see the statements. So I will scroll down here. Okay. Notice now, I have the first statement here, which is done by, let's say, okay, sorry. This is basically apply select statement applied on subtable. Then I insert information to the branch. Then I update either to the let's say branch table. Then delete the information. Then after that, execute the stored procedure and so on. Okay, so notice here what we have done. We have, or we are tracking what the information, which is basically DML commands, which is applied on my Dream Home database. Dream Home database, as you can see here. Clear? Any question till now? Okay, so far so good. So I will give you a break for now for 15 minutes. Then we proceed with the remaining of the codes. Okay? Okay. So see you after 15 minutes. Okay, attention please. Now let's go for another topic, which is DDL triggers, which is DDL triggers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have discussed about the DML triggers, and for the first session, we discussed about the audit, okay, how we create audits and so on the server level, or let's say on the database level. Or I will go back once again to use or to cover, let's say, DDL triggers. Now, before I go to begin with, let's say, covering DDL triggers, let me just go to visit this documentation just to make one thing clear, which is what we call it as DDL event groups, DDL event groups. Now, you will notice here, if I'm working on, let's say, DDL, let's say, triggers, basically I will have something called like parent event, then we'll have like a child event. Like, let me show you what I mean by that. Okay. Okay, for example here, a DDL trigger or event verification that's specified for DDL, for example, say DDL table view events, okay, which is with the number 10,017, covers all the transact SQL statements under the types DDL type event, DDL view event, and DDL index event, and DDL statistics event. That means I will have some events, if I apply it, it will cover more than one subtype of these events. Like for example here, let me just show you one which is more clear. Okay. Create. Okay, this one. Now notice here, this is what DDL, let's say, table events. This DDL table events is the parent event, as you can see, for alter table, create table, and also drop table. Clear? So therefore, notice that sometimes I'll go to use this as generic one. That means if I apply this directly, for example, maybe I want to say you are not allowed to, let's say, access staff table, for example, or doing any modification. So if I set DDL table events, that means it will prevent it from altering the table, creating the table, or dropping the table. Or I can go for more specific. Maybe I'll say, okay, you can create the table or drop it, but you are not allowed to alter the table. Okay, so that means I'll go to use what these, you can say sub events. And this will be applied nearly in all the events that you will see here, all the events that you will see here. Okay, just I want to make this more clear, because also usually students will ask about this part. You'll go to ask about this component. So how we create DDL triggers. Now, first of all, let me just go here. And I want to create a new database, okay, which is called Dream Home DDL trigger. Let me just delete the old one. Okay, so let me just create this database. This is to avoid, let's say, playing with our Dream Home database, because now I want to drop tables, modifying tables, and so on. So let me just use it. Okay. Now, what I want to do here first, I want to create a table. Till now, I didn't add any trigger. Okay. So I will assume that I can simply create the table stuff as administrator. So I will say create table stuff, then I will add the columns. So I will have SNO, integer primary key, first name varchar 30, and last name varchar 30. So I'll go to highlight this one here, then I'll go for execute. Okay, command completed successfully. So now I will have a table called stuff under Dream Home DDL trigger. Okay, so this is the staff thing. Now let me here do the following. I will go to say, or I want to create a trigger which will prevent me from dropping the table or altering the table. So therefore I will say a create or alter. Usually I will use this command here just in case that I want to modify the code later. I don't need to change the create or alter keyword. Okay, trigger DDL trigger table from alter on database. Okay, so this one it is on what? On database level. For a drop table, alter table, that means I will say now you are not allowed to delete the table or modifying the table. Then I will say as begin, brand disable, uh, let's say DDL trigger, table drop alter to drop the alter tables. Then I will go for rollback and so on. So let me highlight this trigger here, highlight, execute. Okay. Now I will go for my database. Then I will go for programmability here, and then I will go for database triggers. Notice here we have what? DDL trigger. Now notice here, we know that in the DML triggers, it is supposed to create under a specific module. So for example, let's go here for the staff, then I will have here what? I will have the trigger, and so on, okay? But for DDL triggers, it will be created on what? On database level. So therefore, it is under programmability folder, like stored the procedures earlier, like stored a procedures earlier. So here we have DDL trigger and so on. Okay. Now, what I will try to do, I want to try to drop the table stuff, the one that we have created right now. So I will go here, highlight, then I will say execute. Now notice here, it will give me the error message. It says disable the trigger table. Okay, to drop the alter or alter tables, and it says transaction ended in the trigger. That means my table was not deleted. My table was not deleted. So when I go here for the tables to check once again, and then I'll go for refresh, I will notice that my table is there. It was not deleted. It was not deleted, or basically it was not dropped. Okay, clear? Any question till now? Okay. Now I want you to check the table self-design. Just I want to check it. So I will highlight this one or highlight this query. So here I can know what the structure of my query. So here I will say select column name, type, and so on from information schema the columns where the table name is stuff. Okay, so I will have here this table information. Now what I want to do here, now why I'm showing this in first place, because I said in my trigger I will modify dropping a table and also I will modifying the table. So what I will try to do next is to add a new column, as you'll see here. So I'll try to use alter command to add a new column to my staff table. Okay. Since I have the trigger there, so it's supposed to prevent me from doing that. So I will say alter table staff, add address varchar 20. So I'll go to highlight this one here, then I'll go for execute. Notice here I get the same error. It says sorry, you can't drop or alter this table which is called the staff because of this trigger, because of this DDL trigger. Okay, clear? So notice here I'm not able to drop the table, and also I'm not able to what? To modify the table. To modify the table. Okay, clear? So now what I want to do here, I want to do next is disabling the trigger and try to modify it or to drop the table or to drop the table. So let's go here for DDL trigger, table drop alter, as you can see here. So I will go to do the following. Either I will use the command or simply right click and you can say what disable the trigger, disable the trigger. So for now I will say disable trigger, DDL trigger and so on, database, highlight, then execute. Now, next, what I want to do, I want to apply the command once again. So since I disable the trigger, or if I delete the trigger, so now I am supposed to be able to do what? To add the code or add the column to my table, as you see right now. So highlight, execute. So command completed successfully. Now I will go here to check the information or to check my table design, highlight, execute. Notice now we have what address is added to my table. The address was added to my table. Okay, clear? Any question? Now, if I want to check once again, can I drop my table stuff? If I want to ask, can I drop my table right now? Can I drop my staff table?
Yes.
Yes, we are supposed to be able what to drop the staff table, right? Because we disable the triggers. If I go for execute here, command completed successfully. So now if I go for tables, the tables are not there in my database anymore. Okay, clear? I think DDL and logon triggers, they are clear because you are familiar now with DML commands. Yes, maybe the structure is a little bit different, but the concept is basically clear. It is not something new, it is not something. But here just I'm giving examples to show you how this works, works basically. Okay, here I define once again, okay, DDL triggers for like table events and so on. Then I give the link once again. Okay. And now let me create a table. Okay. Okay. Now what I want to do here is the following. I want to create another table. Let me just create the staff table once again. Okay. So highlight, execute. And also let me just create another table here, which is department table. Okay, if the trigger is enabled, for sure we can drop the table. But for now, what I want to do is the following. I want to create DDL trigger. Now here I'm using what DDL table event. That means when I add this event, by default, this will include the three actions, which is creating the new table, okay, or deleting, let's say, a table, or what, modifying the table. So here I created the department table, as you can see here. So when I go for tables, refresh, I will have what? I will have the department table. Now, if I want to delete this table, highlight, execute, I can do that because I just simply disable what the previous trigger, right? Now, what I want to do here, I want to create this trigger, which have this event, which is DDL table events, which will cover once again, create table, alter table, and what? Drop table, the three actions, Now, how to know this? Just simply you can go for the events and you can track it here. So if I go once again, notice here we'll have alter table, create, and so on. The same thing apply, for example, for views and so on. Even for the trigger, notice here, because we covered the triggers earlier, alter trigger, create, and the drop, and so on. So I will just go to highlight this one, execute, command completed successfully. So now when I go for, first of all, refreshing the tables, okay, so we have the staff, then when I go here for programmability, go for stored, sorry, I will go for database triggers. So now I have supposed to have what, 2 triggers. Now the same thing, if I want to create the table, I'm not supposed to be able to do that. So highlight, execute, that means I supposed to get an error. So highlight, execute. Notice here, disable trigger, DDL trigger to block table all, okay, to drop or alter the created tables. So also, okay, if I want to do that, highlight once again, execute, it is disabled. Now, can I create a view? Can I create a view? Referring to my condition right now.
No.
I said here, DDL table events. So can I create a view? The first answer is no. Is there any other answer? Okay, yes. Any other opinion? Okay, let's see. Highlight, execute. Can I create the view? The answer is yes. Why? Because table event here, okay, it is not the same as the view. They are different. Notice we have here DDL table event and we have here DDL view event. So we have 2 events. We have 2 different events, the table one and the view one. Okay, clear? So the table one simply not covering the view. So if you want to prevent the views, you need to apply these actions, either the parent one or the child one, as you can see here, as you can see here. Okay, now let's go here in example number 2. Now we discuss about what? Tables. The view it will be the same thing as table. Now what I want to do, I will do the same thing, but for now, for what? For the stored procedures. For the stored procedures, it will be the same thing. That means the process here will be the same thing. But here I will say what? Please go and apply the procedure events. So if I copy this one here, highlight, execute. So notice here, I can check what are the DDL procedure events. So I'll have alter, create, and drop a procedure. Okay. Now, notice here the following. Notice here the following. I will dream home, let's say DDL trigger to apply this action. So just simply I will choose or change the event basically. And then when I want to create this one, highlight, execute. So command completed successfully. So now I'm not supposed to be able to create any stored a procedure. So if I want to create this stored procedure, it will simply prevent me from doing that. So highlight, execute. Okay, so it says sorry, you can't apply this one because simply we have created a trigger to prevent you from doing that. Okay, clear? I think it's clear. I think it's like direct forward, is direct forward. Now, to view the information that I show you right now, I can use this view here, which is system triggers event types, and I can define the number. Now, if I know the number here, okay, if I know the number, so I can define it, let's say, as a parent type or type. So for example, when I have, let's say, this 10,029, let me just go here and check for it. Okay, this one basically it will be applied, for example, for DDL, let's say database security events. Okay, like, okay, I didn't cover encryption till now. It's okay, no problem. Just I'm highlighting it because later when go to apply encryption, also I can check for this thing here. Like for example, when go for DDL, let's say database security events, I can have DDL application role events, and I can have, let's say, DDL asymmetric key events, and so on. Okay, so you can have what one parent that can have multiple what child, and this child will have what other child. So it is like having some sort of hierarchy, as you can see here. As you can see here. Okay. So let me just go for simple example. Then I'll go for this one, just to make it more clear. So if I go for DDL, let's say table. For example, if I go for this one, okay, so I will go here for either the one type is 18 or the type is 18. So when I highlight this one, I will get the details. This is the simple one, because DDL events only include these sub events. Okay, but now when I go back to the previous one, which is the thing which is related to security, highlight execute, it will go to give me what all the detailed information, as you can see here. So this DDL database security events basically includes all these events, in general. Okay, so always we refer to usually the documentation file to check the parent type and the child type. Now, what I want to do next is the following. I want to create now a DDL trigger, but on the server level. Till now, all our triggers, they are what? They are on the database level, as you can see here, under Dream Home DDL trigger, for example, database. But in some cases, I want to create triggers on the server level to avoid manipulating the database itself. So the same thing, I will go here to use master. Okay, then okay, let me just highlight this one, 5. Then create trigger. Now notice here, when I say on, earlier I use on database, right? This one here, okay? While when I go for the server level, DDL on the server level, I need to use all server. I need to use what? All server. Clear? The same thing, I will go here for what? DDL database events. So let me just check what are these events. So let me just copy this one here, then go to check for it here. So in this case, this is the DDL event. So this is like 10,004. Then we have, let me check if there is other than this thing. I don't think so. I have the 3. Okay. Alter database, create database, or drop database. Okay. So therefore here, I will go to create this one. That means I will say here, now you are not allowed to create any database modifying or dropping these database. So highlight, then execute. Okay. Now try to create a new database. For example, let me create a new database called test1234 for assumption. So highlight, execute. Notice here it says, sorry, you are not allowed to do that. Why? Because now I prevent you from modifying any database, creating or altering it. Clear? Any question? Okay. Now what I want to do here, I want to drop the trigger. Okay. So just simply highlight 5, command completed successfully. So now we don't have this trigger here. Now let me just highlight one point. And sorry, let me just create the trigger once again. Let me just show you the location of the trigger, okay? So execute. So now when I go here for triggers, if you click here under security, you will notice it is not there. For DDL triggers, okay, on the server level, if you go for security, notice you have logins, server rules, credentials, cryptographic providers, audit, and notification, right? It will not be there. It will be under something, what you call it as server objects. Okay, so just be aware for this point. So for the triggers on server level, it is not under security. It is under what? Server objects. So if I go here for checking for the triggers, notice I will have what? The DDL trigger, as you can see here, DDL trigger, as you can see here. This will be applied for DDL triggers, and also this will be applied for log-on triggers. Okay, so DDL triggers on the server level will be there in under server objects triggers, and later when I go for log-on triggers, it will be under object server, let's say server objects, and then triggers. Now, why is that? Because for sure, logins simply applied on the server level. They are not on database level. They are not on database level. Okay. Now, after we delete, or now, okay, let me drop the trigger once again. So let me just delete the trigger once again, highlight, execute. Now, the next example here, I think this will be, okay. The next example here is basically, I want to create a DDL trigger, okay? And this trigger will be used to track what? To track the information for the users who want to execute the commands. Like for example, in this example, okay, how we can use the trigger to log on the database, the statements, statement execution time, the user who has fired the statement. This is like what I have done in DML triggers when I try to manipulate data in tables or views. Okay, so therefore I will go here to create a table with the following commands here. So I will say create trigger, DDL trigger, let's say database on all server. For create database as a print database created, then get the information from event, let's say event data. This event data basically is a function which is provided by SQL Server. Usually it will provide me with some data, which is just simply will go to generate, and one of them it will be value. There are others, like for example later, if I check here, we have, let's say, the value for the event type and for the TSQL command, okay? So I will go here to create this event. So highlight and execute. So now let's just check the triggers here once again. We have DDL, let's say, trigger database. Now, what I want to do here, I want to create a database which is called Alex. So highlight, then execute. Now notice here, it says, first of all, database created. It give me what? The event here. Then it says what? It says the result here, show me the information. So create database Alex, because here I only said show me what? The text command. I didn't say show me who is the user who done this event, and so on and so on. Okay, clear? Now the same example here, but we will basically storing more information basically, but it will be the same example, for the same example. And I think all the others will be the same. And I think this will be basically all for DDL triggers. So, any question till now?
So I have a question.
Yes.
For the DDL trigger database trigger,
Yes.
what is the point of that? What is the point of that? Because
You
when
mean
when you create yeah, what's the point?
this one here?
Yes, what is this trigger for usually?
This trigger basically, it will go to track the information, okay, for the events that we have. That means if I want to go here, I can create a log table, okay, that means I create an audit table, okay, then I will go to save the information in that table. It is like what I have done in DML triggers. I'll go to create an audit trigger. If you remember earlier, when I go here for databases like a Dream Home database, okay. So if I go here for the tables, right? So what we have done earlier, we said we have a client and we have a client audit. So I can do what? I can record the information in what? In the client audit table. The same thing goes here. I can create DDL log, let's say log table, and I can store the information, like for example, say post time, the database user who tried to access, what is the event that the SQL statements, okay, was executed, and then I can save all the information in that file. Okay, so this is an audit process, but on what? For DDL commands, for DDL commands.
Yeah, so this is for the audit function. Then the one above that trigger is just to track whether
Yes,
like when
this
the
is just simply,
database when the database
this is
is like created, right? Yeah.
yes, yes. This is just highlighting. Okay, this is how. Okay, just database created. So just I can give some messages. Okay, database was created. Then this is the result. Okay, what is the statement and so on.
Oh,
So the
just
next one it will be just informing the others. But basically, this one here will go for the more details. So notice here. Let me show you. Okay, since we are here. So I will go here to use Dream Home detail trigger. So highlight execute. Okay, then I'll go to create the table DDL log file. Okay, and this one basically will go to track what all the, let's say suppose DDL triggers. So I will say execute. So here in under my Dream Home DDL trigger. Okay, let's go for tables. Now I will have sorry, once again, did I create the table? Disable trigger, okay, so just I need to drop the trigger here because it is preventing me from creating the table. So just give me 1 minute. So I'll go here, then I will say, okay, just disable. And okay, let me try to create, let me just check the triggers once again, if there is any trigger. Okay, let me delete this one just to avoid okay any clash. So let me just create a table once again. Deal trigger, okay, 1 minute. I need to go here to programmability once again. So let me just go here, then go for database triggers and say, okay, drop this one or disable it. So let me just drop it. Okay, delete. Yes, then create the table once again. Okay, seems I delete the wrong one. No worries. Okay, now highlight once again, then execute. So now I have created a table, and also let me disable this one just to avoid any clash. Okay, it is disabled. So now I have created what, two tables. The first one, or we have the staff table. Now we have what, the DDL log events. Now what I want to do next, I want to create a trigger, okay, a DDL trigger on database here. So I will say create log trigger on database DDL, let's say database events. Then here I want to check what the user have done in our system. So what I will do here, I will say insert DTL log, post time, database user, event, TSQL statement, and so on. So let me highlight this one here. Okay. Now here, notice I declared data or as what? As XML file. Then I said, okay, set data to equal to the event data, which is the function that we have. Then insert the information for the following data. So I get the date. Okay. Then I will get the current user that we have. Then I will have the other two informations or parameters, which is given by this event data function. Okay. So I'll go here to create the trigger, highlight, execute. Okay, now I have created what? The trigger. Now if I want to select the information from the DDL, let's say, audit table, till now it is empty, there is nothing there. Now what I want to do here, let's assume I want to create a new table as a user. Okay, as administrator in my case. So I will go to say create table, right? The table that we have here, which is called test table, a integer. So highlight execute. So one row affected. And now let me just check the log file. So I will say select all from DDL log file. So notice here I will get what? I will get when the action was done. Okay. Then the DBO, which is the user. By the way, you can change this from current user to maybe there is S user and so on, which can show the login name, okay, which is Abdullah. But here I use the current user, so it says it is database owner. Then I will have what is the event that, okay, I was trying to apply on my system. Then here it show me what? The SQL command. It show me what? The SQL command. So therefore, the purpose of this trigger is that I can track, okay, the users who create objects or maybe modifying them or maybe dropping these objects. And therefore, if something goes later wrong, okay, later what we can do, we can just simply just track the information here. Okay, I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear. So this is an audit table, but on what? On DDL commands, not DML commands. So it is the same thing. Even later, when I go for log on commands, it will be the same. That means I will have one of the commands for log on commands to create an audit table. Then after that, I'll go to check the information. And here I want to highlight one point. You notice that sometimes I can track for the same, to some extent, the same information using different techniques. Using different techniques. Like for example, earlier I use audits, right? To do that. And also I can use what? The triggers itself. So that depends on which one you want to choose. Clear? Any question? So for example, if I want to delete the table, which is the test table once again, highlight execute. Okay, then I will say select the information here. Notice that, okay, said, okay, the table was dropped and this is the user and so on. Clear? Any question? Any question till now? Okay, so far so good. Now later next lecture, I will go to cover the remaining part, which is basically the log on triggers, the log on triggers. So any question before I take the attendance? Are you available today? No, unfortunately, because today I have another lecture right now after this directly, after only half an hour of this lecture. And also later I will be having a lot of admin work. Okay, so most likely if we can arrange it maybe by tomorrow or after tomorrow. Okay, so please just send me a message. Tomorrow, yes, most likely I will have some time. What time I will be free tomorrow? Anytime before 5 o'clock. This is my schedule, it is 5, right? So anytime before 5, I will be free. Richard also the same thing. So maybe what we can do, let me just send me a message on Teams. Okay. Okay. So later I will just check it because also now I have FYB projects and IR, submissions for the level 3 students. So therefore I have also some consultation hours. Because the timetable unfortunately don't showing all our schedule. So later just send me a message, then I will go to reply for the uh, timing availability to conduct this by tomorrow. Okay, clear? Okay. So here I will go for, okay, this is DBS, not sure. The time suppose, okay.
Do we have to submit the database for the assignment or just
For
the
sure.
command? Oh.
Yes, for sure. And later I will highlight about this, but basically you need to submit the database, all the queries that you have done, plus the report. So later I will show you, I'll go to create what two links. I'll go to create what two links, not one link. Okay.
So let's say something can be done using the GUI. So do we have to still use the command?
No, GUI not acceptable at all.
Oh, so
GUI just
everything
I'm
has
explaining. Yes, everything's supposed to be with the codes. GUI only, just I'm showing you, okay, I can do it using the GUI, okay? That's all, but no, when you go for implementation, you must give me the codes. Okay, so it is just, oh, we can apply this using this form and so on. But for implementations, I want to see codes, basically.
all right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome, most welcome. Okay, let's check for the attendance. Anyone is here but is not able to take the attendance? Yasmin, it is there. You're already there. Okay. Anyone else before I leave the lecture? Okay, so that's all for the. Okay, let me just check it, and we can confirm the time by tomorrow. See you. Have a nice day. Assalamu alaikum.